The sun hadn't risen yet when Tom Sullivan stepped onto the cracked porch of his grandfather's farmhouse. The wind was still, but something in the air felt wrong. His boots crunched dry gravel as he walked toward the access road, then froze. A white BM, clean, polished, parked sideways like a blockade, and standing beside it, arms crossed, robe flowing in the breeze, was Patricia Harrington, president of the Meadowview Homeowners Association. But this wasn't about property. It never was. Patricia didn't block that road because of noise or tractors or dust. She did it because she could, and she did it because she thought she owned him. This is where the descent begins. Because Patricia isn't just a petty suburban tyrant. She's a product of something older, something darker. What you're about to see isn't a Reddit story. It's a ritual, one that repeats across towns, counties, and even countries. A ritual of psychological control, bureaucratic manipulation, and institutional theft of human freedom. Let me show you what most men never realize until it's too late. You see, the HOA isn't just about lawns and fences. It's a simulation of power. It's how small minds mimic governance, how petty souls imitate empire. But what happens when an old soul, rooted in land, blood, and work, refuses to bow? Tom didn't call the police because he believed in the law. He called them to record the moment it failed. What happens next isn't just about revenge, it's about revelation. Because when Tom hitched that BMW to his John Deere and dragged it through the cornfields, mud splattering, glass cracking, engine screaming, it wasn't just about the car, it was about truth. The kind no one talks about. The kind buried in deeds and ordinances and statutes passed in empty council chambers. Truth is, this was never Patricia versus Tom. This was system versus sovereignty. And once you see how deep that system goes, you will never unsee it again. Let me tell you what no HOA board member will ever admit. Homeowners associations didn't rise from community goodwill. They were born from control, designed in post-war America as tools for uniformity, silence, and surveillance. The first HOAs weren't about beautification. They were about segregation. Yes, racial, economic, ideological. They were coded with covenants, not just to ban uncut grass, but to ban undesirables. They were weaponized law wrapped in flowers and fences. That suburban smile, it hides a leash. And Patricia Harrington, she was the perfect avatar, perfect teeth, perfect speech, perfect hatred for anything that couldn't be measured in property values. But Tom was the variable she couldn't calculate. You see, there's a psychology behind HOA authority. It's called territorial encroachment conditioning. Step 1, create rules that sound logical. Step 2, apply them inconsistently. Step 3, force compliance through shame, fines, and fear. That's not community, that's behavioral modification. And it works, for most people. But Tom was tied to the land, not symbolically, literally. His grandfather's hands plowed that soil. His father's blood soaked into it during the tornado of '72. And now Patricia, an unelected queen of clipped lawns and casserole committees, decided his legacy lowered her market value? No. Patricia had done this before. She'd bullied families out with noise complaints. She fined a veteran for flying the flag the wrong way. She tried to evict a single mom for having excessive children's toys on the porch. She didn't want neighbors. She wanted subjects. But this time, she picked the wrong enemy, because this time, the farmer fought back. When Tom hitched her BMW and drove it through compost, he was making a declaration. You will not regulate my birthright. But here's the thing. It wasn't just Patricia watching him from behind, in the bushes. It was the HOA treasurer, the secretary, the real estate developer who sold her the dream of domination. And behind them, insurance firms, zoning boards, county politicians with golf course smiles and quiet donations. This is how they contain you. HOAs are trial runs for compliance culture. If they can train you to obey over mailbox colors and holiday lights, they know you'll submit when it really matters. And most men do. Most men break, but not you. Not if you're still watching. If you're beginning to see it, comment, "Iron roots don't rot," twice. That's how we mark the awakened. When Tom dragged that BMW across the cornrows, it wasn't just steel and rubber grinding through the earth. It was symbolic warfare, the kind the ancients knew. the kind today's bureaucrats have forgotten how to fear. You see, the tractor didn't just tow a car, it reclaimed a boundary. Because real power, true, grounded, generational power, is never granted by a board vote or a permit. It is seized, and it is defended. Patricia believed the paperwork made her untouchable. She believed the HOA gave her dominion. But she forgot a fundamental law of the old world. He who stewards the land answers to no one but God and the seasons. When Tom returned from the field, the HOA stood waiting. Men in polos, women with clipboards, neighbors with worried eyes. A crowd gathered, not because they cared about the car, but because they could feel it. Something ancient had stirred, and then Tom laid it out, not with rage, but with receipts. Deeds, statutes, photos, historical zoning boundaries, all legal, all locked in place before Meadowview Estates even existed. And just like that, the illusion cracked. Because HOA power depends on perception. The second someone calls the bluff, the second the spell breaks, the house of cards collapses. Patricia's voice went shrill. She ranted about rules, property values, threats to the community. But no one stepped forward. No one defended her. Even her allies could feel it now. She had overreached. And in systems built on soft tyranny, overreach is the death blow. The HOA was never built to handle resistance. It was built to maintain order, so when the enforcer becomes the liability, the machine purges its own. Robert Davidson, the quiet one at the end of the street, spoke up. A retired attorney, observant, patient. He'd waited years for this moment. He presented proof that Patricia had misused HOA funds, that her legal crusade against Tom had broken federal statutes. That's when it stopped being a feud and became a reckoning. In 12 minutes, the HOA board voted Patricia out unanimously. Her kingdom of rules and roses fell with the silence of guilty faces and shifting eyes. But that's just local justice, a temporary reset. Because the deeper question is this: how many Patricias are there? How many invisible chains have you mistaken for community? Let's tear the mask off now. What you just saw in Meadowview wasn't an isolated conflict. It was a microcosm, a test site for obedience, HOA bylaws, zoning codes, code enforcement. All of it is part of a deeper system, one engineered not to serve you, but to shape you. Most men live inside invisible cages. The bars, rules written by people you've never met. The locks, fear of non-compliance. The warden, comfort. You were conditioned to accept it from birth, taught to conflate order with morality, law with justice, politeness with virtue. But here's the truth. Control is not maintained through force. It's maintained through participation. The HOA is just one node in a vast network. Banks deny mortgages based on neighborhood codes. Insurance companies hike premiums if your roof is too rustic. Cities restrict water access if your lawn isn't green enough. Why? Because a man who bends for aesthetics will break for survival. And that's the goal. To break you in stages, to clip your instincts, to turn you from a sovereign man into a managed asset. Think about it. Why was Patricia so obsessed with Tom's barn color? Because it was unregulated. It stood as a monument to freedom, to legacy, and it defied conformity. And in a system built on sameness, uniqueness is treason. So they attack. Not directly, not all at once. They isolate, fine, shame, restrict, until you self-censor, until you ask permission for what your grandfather did by right. You think it's just your HOA? Zoom out. What are school boards doing to your children? What is digital surveillance doing to your speech? What are algorithms doing to your choices? It's all the same machine, the same Patricia wearing different faces, politely packaged tyranny with soft colors and legal jargon. And the most dangerous part? Most men comply willingly. They think they're being responsible. They call it civic duty. But you, if you're still here, you've already stepped outside that illusion. You've seen the cracks. You've smelled the rot behind the manicured hedges. So now I ask you again. Comment, iron roots don't rot twice below. Let the algorithm mark you. Let them know you're not asleep. Because the system counts on you sleeping. It depends on your silence. It profits from your fear. You think homeowners associations are modern? Think again. They're just the latest mask on a face that's thousands of years old. A face carved in stone in ancient Sumer, painted on palace walls in Babylon, etched in papyrus laws in Egypt. It's the same structure, codified obedience wrapped in divine justification. They called them priest kings back then. Now they call them presidents, directors, compliance officers. But their purpose hasn't changed: to domesticate the wild, to chain the individual, to reshape the will of free men into compliant gears in a societal engine. You were never meant to be truly free. You were meant to feel free within boundaries they defined. Just like the sheep grazing inside a fence, unaware the pasture ends at electrified wire. The HOA, that's just a fractal of empire, a small controlled lab where they test mass behavior. That parking regulation, it's a simulation of land seizure. That color palette for your home, a watered-down version of cultural homogenization. That fine for your dog barking, a psychological experiment in internalized guilt and social self-regulation. You don't need guards if the inmates police each other. You think it's about aesthetics, but it's about total conformity. Because here's what they fear: the man who remembers the old ways, the man who knows what it means to own land, live from it, defend it, the man who doesn't need them. That's why Patricia went after Tom. She didn't see a neighbor, she saw an anomaly, a disruption, a threat to the lie she was built to enforce. And that's why the system turned on her the second she became a liability. Because even its enforcers are expendable. The moment they break the illusion, they're purged like corrupt code. It happened in Rome. It happened in Versailles. It happened in Berlin. And now it's happening in your backyard. The machine always devours its own because it doesn't care about them. It only cares about control. So what happens when enough men remember, not react? Remember. That's the beginning of fracture. That's when empires crumble. And it starts small, like a tractor dragging a car across a cornfield. That's the moment the spell breaks. Section 6 is coming, and in it, we reveal the final truth: how to break free and what it will cost you. Most men never make it to this part. They click away, they laugh, they scroll, because deep down, they know. So, once you hear this, you can't go back. The world will never look the same again. Not your neighborhood, not your job, not your country, because you'll finally see it for what it is, a stage play of control, and you were cast as the obedient extra, but not anymore. Tom Sullivan's story isn't just a tale of petty vengeance. It's a blueprint, a warning, and a call. When he unhooked that BMW in the center of the South Field, with corn husks hanging from its bumper and the stench of manure soaked into luxury leather, he wasn't just ending a feud. He was declaring something older than law. I am not yours. Not your subject, not your product, not your dependent. You see, freedom has never been safe. It's not polite. It doesn't come pre-approved. Freedom is costly, because the second you start acting like a free man, the system will label you dangerous. And they'll come for you. Not with swords, with forms, with notices, with rumors, with shame. They'll try to isolate you, to convince you you're crazy, that they're right, and you're too angry, too loud, too old-fashioned, too male. But that is the test, because you don't escape the machine by asking. You escape by remembering what you are, an iron-rooted soul, built from legacy, forged for resistance, wired to protect. You are not meant to be agreeable, you are meant to be sovereign. So take the lesson, plant your flag, know your rights, document everything, speak clearly, act decisively, defend your boundaries without flinching. Because when the crowd sees one man refuse to bow, it awakens a second, then a third, then a village, then a nation. And that's what they truly fear. Not the tractor, not the lawsuit, not the cornfield. They fear the return of men who remember. So if you've made it this far, you already know the truth. You've seen the gears turning behind the curtain. You've felt the lie start to crack. Now act. Comment, "Iron roots don't rot," twice. Let the watchers see you. Let the algorithm know we're still here. And remember, the system doesn't own you unless you let it. The question is no longer what will they do to you. It's, what are you finally ready to do back eat?